the next 2 months, you're going to toughen your mind and your body. It's going to make your Olympic training look like finger painting. Anyone who enters Parmistan must play the game. If he wins, he's allowed his life and one request. We're interested in Parmistan for one reason, and that's location.
Why don't we send in the troops?
Direct military action is out of style, my friend. Finesse. There is one chance for one man. Any questions?
None.
Hey everybody, it's the Cannon Cruisers. I'm JD.
And I'm Randy, and on this week's bonus feature, we're checking out the 1985 martial arts film directed by Robert Clouse, based on a novel by Dan Tyler Moore called The Terrible Game. That's right, we checked out Gymkata. So, JD, since I wasn't following too closely, what is this movie about?
Really, Randy? You need me to tell you what Gymkata was about? Gymkata stars gold medalist Kurt Thomas, rest in peace, as he is trained by the United States government to deal with a special competition in the country of Parmistan, obviously not a real country, as he is then taken and trained in a martial art, karate, to become the ultimate warrior between gymnastics and karate, which becomes
Gymkata.
Gymkata.
But can you remind me why he had to go to this country and participate?
Because he has to win the competition and he has to gain the trust of the king who's there. But unfortunately, he didn't understand that it was in the middle of a coup by the evil Zamir, his guard and trusted advisor.
Played by Richard Norton.
Yes, who also did the stunts in this movie.
And also his father was there from the previous game.
Yep, and they thought they lost his father. They're like, we have to get your father out. And he said, oh, I'm going to go and get him. I'm going to get him. And that's what Kurt Thomas did. He went in and got him. And that's pretty much the plot. So
as you can tell, it's a very sensical plot, very average by the numbers plot.
It's an excuse in order to get an adventure going. That's pretty much it. And
in Parmesan, the country of cheese.
Yes, which was actually Yugoslavia, which thankfully didn't call it Yugoslavia because that would have aged really badly if they did, considering what happened not long after it was filmed there.
Yes.
So, anyway, it's basically just an excuse because Kurt Thomas was popular because he was the gold medalist at the time, and they're like, well, let's get him in an action movie. Let's get a movie vehicle for Kurt Thomas, and that's what they did with this movie. That's pretty much it. Wanted an excuse for gymnastics, but you can also, action movies are popular. Get the guys in the cinema.
So they got Robert Clouse to come in, Enter the Dragon, to come in and direct this film.
Oh, yeah.
Not deaf.
You have to point that out all the time.
Apparently that is you have to break that mystique that no, he was not deaf.
He was just really hard of hearing, where he was practically almost deaf. That's a very big difference, apparently. I don't know, but it seems to be very important. Nonetheless, they didn't quite slack on that aspect. They got the director of Enter the Dragon. They got Richard Norton to do a lot of the fight scenes.
Yeah, he choreographed the whole film.
Yeah, and Kurt Thomas did a lot of gymnastics as well, so they really knew what they were selling with this movie.
Which yeah, I'll touch upon that part in a little bit later.
Yeah. So, all of that said, because that's pretty much the setup, what were your general impressions of Gymkata? I actually want to know this.
It's a fine Sunday afternoon action movie to watch in the background. Nothing spectacular, but nothing that bad.
It's a fun movie.
It's a fun movie, yeah.
It's a pretty standard plot, but at the same time, it's not a whole lot like Gymkata in that you kind of have to get this exact period of mid to late 80s action movie star vehicle using a veteran director as well as a veteran stunt guy in order to get this entire project together and execute it in the most bizarre way at times, especially in certain points, which I guess we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, it's a very strange movie, despite the fact that it's not actually that strange if you just watch it.
Which leads us to our lowlights of the film, that the movie is not as strange or as fun or as ridiculous as it was made out to be by people on the internet and in the culture.
I think that gets oversold just because it's the crazy gymnastic movie.
And really, there's only 2 or 3 spots that are over-the-top gymnastics moments in the movie. And while they are the standout, ridiculous set pieces that you want them to be,
those are the ridiculous.
There aren't enough of that. Other than that, it's just a standard dangerous game type movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of shootouts. There's a lot of people getting beaten up. There's a race obstacle courses with people dying on them. There's a lot of action in the movie. It's just not as over-the-top insane as you're told it is.
The overplay between gymnastics and martial arts isn't as strange or as loose as, I don't know, radio aerobics and ninjutsu. It's there's more of an overlap between gymnastics and karate.
I think the stunt coordinator gets a lot of credit for that because he managed to make it look very seamless between Kurt Thomas doing gymnastics and doing martial arts. So it actually does look like he's really good at flipping around and beating people up, which is impressive.
Gymnastics is very agility focused.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to combine it with a martial arts. Yeah. Even if it ends up looking a little bit like capoeira without the dancing.
Yeah, it's very choreographic, but at the same time, not like you might think it would be in a lot of movies where they're kind of flipping around and like not hitting people, you know what I mean? Or they're just being missed. In this one, no, it actually is pretty tight. Like the moves are sharp. He gets in, he gets out, he hits people. Like I said, the only times where it just obvious, like, okay, this is going to get people talking is the pommel horse section, obviously.
The high bar section.
And the high bar section. Those are the biggest ones that are obviously
and the climbing the rope.
Yeah. Although that's more of a standard chase type sequence.
Yeah, but he did it in the most gymnastics way possible, just with his hands, his legs spread out wide, and he was just going up. Like I said, we didn't get enough of that. Like that, there wasn't as much fun stuff as that. It just ends up being a standard action movie beyond those 3 moments. And like I said, I was sold that on this being a completely ridiculous movie. And other than those 3 moments and him training to walk on his hands, that we're like, okay, yeah, that's gymnastics. That's fine.
I probably could have told you that myself if you wanted me to. It's just a fun action movie. It's not as people try to sell it as online. It's not that type of
its reputation actually kind of ruined it for me. Like it just basically, it's like I went in expecting something and I didn't get the something I was expecting.
I don't really know why it gets sold as what it is. I think people just get too hung up on the whole, it's a gymnastic guy, but he's doing martial arts, so that means it's going to be kooky and crazy, but it's not really. It's just,
once again, there is lots of overlap between the two. One is very agility focused, which you can transition into using your body to swing your legs and your arms around really fast to create momentum to attack. Yeah. It's like...
Yeah, like I said, you probably could have, and I think if you would have gotten a stunt coordinator that was a lot worse at his job than the guy in this movie, it probably would have just not come out well at all. I don't think there's a really good way to get that balance. Like, let's just say, getting the Miami connection sort of situation is not exactly easy to do as it is. But to get that out of this...
That's a movie that was sold as being ridiculous, and then you watch it, it's like, this is just very earnest, but still as ridiculous as what is being sold. But that's not Gymkata.
No, Gymkata is just an action movie with a unique hook. That's the best way to put it.
So what's your low light of the film?
I would probably say I would have liked more scenes like that, like you were mentioning. It would have been nice to see them really go all out, but at the same time...
Like really lean into the ridiculousness of it?
You could, but at the same time, with what was there, I think it might have just taken away from it if it was too much of it. And you would have just been like, what stupid thing are they going to do now? Are they going to ruin it again?
Like, I got a straight up chuckle out of the high bar.
Yeah.
And the pommel horse, as ridiculous as it is, was an effective showcase of his abilities as a gymnast, mixed with kicking people in the face.
Although they did a really good job of those ones, and I think what really actually does sell those in the movie is the fact that what leads into them happening are already over the top situations that are already crazy. even for action movie standards, like there's a lot of, at the beginning of the movie, there's a lot of chase scenes and guys shooting each other. So he's running down a narrow alleyway and he's flipping around, kicking them in the face. So it's funny when he like accidentally kicks a guy who has nothing to do with what's happening.
Yeah, like there was civilian casualties in that because the guy just turned a corner on his bike. Yeah,
and he even apologized to him, which is funny. And then later in the movie, when the pommel horse section happens, if it would have happened in the middle of nowhere just happening, you'd been like, what the hell is happening? But the way it happens is he's literally in a Resident Evil 4 city of crazy people trying to kill him and killing the other contestants and even chopping their own limbs off. And wearing really weird outfits, including a guy who's naked from the back down and a guy who has a face on the back of his head. So by the time
he looked like the Burger King.
By the time you get to the pommel horse thing, you're just like, okay, I buy it. Sure. It's already crazy enough at this point.
The pommel horse is in the middle of the town because the people from the insane asylum need something to exercise on. We get it.
Yeah, it's a crazy town full of crazy people. So obviously they'd have really weird, crazy things. That's like I said, they managed to sell.
And I think it was
like
near a well, too, so they were using it. They're trying to create some sort of connection between the two, but it's like, okay.
Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of stuff like that in the movie, and I think it helps, again, you have the director of Enter the Dragon, so he clearly knows how to do this sort of stuff. He's done it before.
So that would go to our highlights of the film, which I'm just going to say the choreography and the of the fight scenes and the stunts were actually pretty decent.
Yeah. I think they did a really good job, and like we've mentioned in a couple of movies like this, how it's difficult to escalate this sort of stuff, like the stunts from where you begin into a movie to the end, because we've watched several where we've mentioned like just out of, I guess, a random choice would be BMX Bandits, where the final chase is not as good as the one in the middle of the movie, where it's like normally it would be fine, but when you have such high standards and you don't bother to top it, it just kind of feels like a letdown, even if it's not technically, bad or anything. But in this movie, they actually managed to make each situation feel more intense than the one before it. And considering the movie starts with a lot of people running around getting shot with arrows and shooting people in alleyways, that's pretty impressive that by the end of the movie, you have people setting ropes on fire and dancing against trees to flip over other people and try to, knock them down or break people's necks. It's pretty crazy, but not in a way where it's loony, like it's sold as being really. It's just very well done in a surprising way.
It's surprisingly competent.
Yes, it is. That's the other thing a lot of people would say about the movie is that it's Miami Connection level ridiculousness. I guess you could say that if you saw the premise of the movie and you saw those two crazy scenes we were just talking about, but the actual film itself is very competently and well made. Like, there's nothing wrong with the direction in the movie. There's nothing wrong with the stunts in the movie. There's nothing wrong really with the action in the movie at all.
No, it's like I said, it's a totally serviceable action film for a Friday afternoon. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, this is the sort of movie.
Put on in the background, fold your laundry.
Like, hey, that's the gold medalist guy, and he's in an action movie. Look at that. Hey, it's pretty well done. That's fun. Okay, but it's not anything like
that.
Crazy.
Basically, is the vibe of the movie. Is like, that's fun. Okay,
it's not like a Bolero situation. I guess let's put it that way. It's not that kind of a project where it's just a misfire at every conceivable level.
Did you know that the shirt in this movie that he wore throughout most of it, the red sweater, belonged to Kurt Thomas?
You might as well mention that stuff because for some reason that stuff, whoever's writing the trivia on IMDb doesn't know what trivia means.
Going back to the days of me mocking them openly on Groundcast Day, the IMDb trivia is terrible. It's like you're literally like, spoiler, the red shirt worn by main character Kurt Thomas belongs to actor Kurt Thomas.
Yeah, okay.
Spoiler, Richard Norton spent 45 minutes plus training on a horse for his role. Okay.
How is that a spoiler? That's not what a spoiler is. Like, that sort of weirdness just feels like it got to the point where he was just listing random things off, and I'm like, you're either making this stuff up or the person who's writing this down is making this up, because this does not feel right. It feels too crazy and random and nonsensical at the same time.
Techi Agbayana, who played Princess Rubala, was the first Asian playmate.
That's trivia. That's not a spoiler, though.
No, that wasn't a spoiler. I was just like, okay.
It's just trivia. That's not a spoiler.
That's fun. Okay. Like, even the trivia has that vibe of, yeah, okay, that's stupid.
It's like I said. It just felt like somebody said, let's get Kurt Thomas. He's popular. Let's get him in a movie. And somebody had the smart idea to say, let's get Robert Clouse to do that movie. That's pretty much how I would sum up Gymkata in one sentence. So, all that said, we talked about the movie.
It's a Tammy
highlights.
and the T-Rex situation. We have Kurt Thomas for an afternoon. What can we do with him?
In a way, yeah. The difference is... like
They had
you
him for
said,
longer than an afternoon.
Not just that, but that they had a competent director say, okay, we know how to use him for that amount of time we have, instead of just, let's roll him around with leaves on top of his legs so you don't see the wheels underneath. Weird stuff like that.
I will forever love Tammy and the T-Rex just for the fact that it's just... The whole entire origin story is we have access to a giant plexiglass T-Rex. How can we use him?
And it's so oddly edited that they cut out like all the gore, so like even the movie feels weirdly PG, even though there's sex stuff in it, which is very explicit. It's so bizarre. In this movie, it just feels like an R-rated action movie. That's pretty much it.
Which would have been a PG-13 rated action movie.
Yeah, because there's blood. And a guy getting his arm cut off by himself.
But it's not really gory.
Guy cuts his own arm off, but aside from that, there's no like sex or anything really
No, there
crazy.
is sex at the beginning, but it's not explicit.
That kind of sex, though, is what I mean. Like, you're talking Tammy and the T-Rex. You remember the ending of that movie?
Where she's stripping for the brain in a jar as they rebuild his body? Yeah.
And then his brain sparks out, which is very disturbing and weird.
Brain ejaculation, we get it.
Way to end the movie like that. And this movie, he just like, he beat the bad guy, and now he won the princess's hand. There you go. That's the ending. So yeah, let's just get straight to it, Randy. What would you give a rating-wise to Gymkata 1985?
Oh, that's easy. It's a 3 out of 5.
That's a 3 for you?
Yeah, it's nothing great. It's nothing terrible. It is entertaining, but because it wasn't as ridiculous as I was led to believe, it can't really make it out of that. The 3 ghetto. It's just like, yeah, it's totally fine. Like I said, the vibe of the movie is, it's fine. Okay.
Well, okay. I'll give it a 4. I really like the movie.
Oh, I know you liked the movie. I know you were enjoying the movie.
Well, yeah. That's one of the reasons why I suggested it. It's because I really liked the movie, and I was always been surprised that people...
He nearly finished a family-sized bag of popcorn that I only gave to him like 2/3 of the way into the movie.
It's a popcorn movie. This is exactly the same type of popcorn movie you'd watch. And like I said, it does everything it says on the box, and it's a fun movie. The only thing is, I think pop culture does it a disservice the way it tries to sell the movie to be something it's not. Because it's just a fun action movie. You want a movie to watch in the afternoon with a bunch of guys, put this one on, you'll have a good time.
It's like, if you want to see a movie that kind of is what the pop culture reaction to it is, you watch Troll 2.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other ball game, really.
You watch Silent Night and Deadly Night 2. Those are exactly what pop culture takes them as.
Even Miami Connection.
Yeah, even though that's not as big in popular culture, but it is.
This one is just more like people see the premise of the movie, and they see those 2 scenes, and they figure, that's the movie. Not really. In context, those scenes actually work very well, which is surprising.
Not the high bar one so much, but that worked okay.
That worked out because of how it ended.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Because I ended on a gag.
Yeah, like I said, overall, it's a good watch. I would recommend it if you haven't seen this one. It's a cult favorite for a reason. Just don't take it for what it's sold as. Take it for what it actually is. And you'll have a good time. And that's all we've really got for this one, everybody. So we'll see you next time when we continue our cruise through our random movie catalog right now.
Yeah, we're just doing bonus films, and then we'll go to our next little thing that's a bunch of... I don't want to spoil the theme.
We'll see when we get there. That's it for this one, everybody. So we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
His name, Jonathan Cabot. His title, World Gymnastics Champion. His assignment, a secret mission for the United States government. His only weapon, himself. And that's all he needs.
Don't trust anyone.
Combine the power of gymnastics with the explosive force of karate. Gymkata.
There are many sounds around us. Here, the only sound of axe are in the air.
When gymnastics and karate are fused, the combustion becomes an explosion, and a new kind of martial arts superhero is born. Gymkata.